Hey everybody.
Konbanwa. Hi everyone. We do want to tag Jared.
There we go.
Yep.
There I am.
So hi.
Hey.
We are not in Japan.
We are no longer in Japan.
No, we're back home.
In fact, it has been just about a month since we got back.
Yes.
So we decided that we wanted to do a video to recap our whole experience. If you hadn't seen any of our previous videos, we did one every day where we went over like our whole day, sometimes in painstaking detail.
It was a pretty thorough recap.
It was. So if you really want to know all the details about our trip to Japan,
you can go back and watch those videos.
and watch like all 20 hours of video.
But this is going to be a little bit different. So we wanted to kind of just reflect on the trip like overall and kind of talk about some things we'll mention again that were in the other videos, but hopefully we'll add some new observations and commentary into this one.
So again, we went to Japan.
We did.
And we were there for 16 days, just about 2 weeks with like subtracting travel on either side.
It's like a solid 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So a quick overview of the trip. We started off by going to Tokyo Disneyland. We were there for 4 days. After we left there, we were in Tokyo for a day. Took a train to Kyoto. We're there for 3 or 4 days. Then did an overnight in a small town called Nachi. And then we went back to Tokyo, finished out our trip there. And
then left.
And then left Japan.
Very sad. So let's see. I was just going to point out that when we went to Disneyland, it was the Disneyland Tokyo Resort, so it included both parks, Disneyland and
Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea.
And Disney Sea. So wanted to talk a little bit, and something we didn't go too in depth with our original videos was a little bit about how we planned for our trip and sort of the prep that went into it. This is not the first trip we've taken together.
It is not. It's far from the first.
So we've kind of developed a method of travel planning for us, but I think when we go international, it becomes a much bigger scale. Should I talk about that first, or do we want to? Sure. Okay. So I would say like normally our approach whenever we're doing a trip is the first thing we do is we just sort of like compile a list separately, typically, of anything we want to do. And that could be of any interest. It could be the things that are like, this might be interesting, to like, these are the things I'm absolutely going to do whether or not anyone else wants to do them. So that's sort of our first approach. So we just compile everything we want to do, and then we sort of go through and like rank what our interest is, and then we compare our lists and see what overlaps. And then obviously things that we both have high interest in, that we both want to do, we kind of mark those and assume we're going to do those. And then we're also of the mindset that we don't have to do every single thing together. So if there's something that's super high interest to one of us but not the other, we build in time to make that happen.
When we first started traveling together, Katrina mentioned that as like her philosophy for when you're traveling as a group or like more than by yourself, and it's been perfect. I think it's a great way to approach a trip.
Yeah, never want anyone to feel bad for like not wanting to do what everyone else wants to do, because we've also traveled with groups larger than just the two of us, and we've applied that same concept there. And then the next thing I like to do is look at everything that we've listed and then plot them on a map. So to start grouping together, are there things on the same side of town that that we can kind of cluster together to help plan. Is this going to be a whole day on the west side, or like do we, just figuring out like where things group together naturally, so that we're not zigzagging unnecessarily across town if we don't have to. So that's sort of like the next step. And then we start plotting that into, okay, we've got so many days, and trying to estimate how much time we need in a certain place, and then coming up with a rough itinerary. And I say rough, I think if anyone looked at what we actually plan ahead of time, it would look very thorough. There's like shared Google Docs and spreadsheets involved. But the way I look at it is like, for me personally, I like to do a lot of planning up front because I don't want to be scrambling to like find things to do once I'm there. And then we have that structure, but then I would say we're pretty flexible within that structure. So we have like, this is what we think the plan will be, but then we just know we have the expectation that it could shift. Once we get there, we like find something really amazing, or we go to do something and we're like, we don't like this at all, let's bounce. Like, so it's like we have the structure, but then it's flexible once we're in it. And for something like this, we started planning months in advance.
Yeah, it's going to a culture that in a lot of ways is very different from our own, and where they speak a different language, did require a lot of preparation. So we had a lot of resources that we turned to as part of that. A lot of time spent looking at YouTube, podcasts, blogs. So we wanted to do like a quick call out for the ones that we found really useful.
Yeah, super useful. I think more than any other trip I've ever taken, YouTube was so valuable. There's really, really awesome. I mean, you could just, there's tons of content. So we're going to shout out just the ones we used the most. This is not everyone by far. But just wanted to give like a couple shout outs. The first one, like when I first started thinking about going to Japan, one of the YouTube channels that I was watching, and she's not currently doing new content, but there's a lot of great information that she does have. The channel's called Texan in Tokyo, and it just gave me a great overview of just life in Japan and cultural things and travel, and that really sparked my interest. As far as planning, we got a ton of information from a handful of sites. One great food and like neighborhood centered information would be Paolo in Tokyo. He also has an Instagram. I think pretty much all of these ones we're going to mention also have Instagram. This Natasha, that's one word, This Natasha, great Disney info, and then also just general Japan travel. She's from the UK, but she lived in Japan for a while. And then a site or a channel that I got a lot of information from mostly like a shopping and beauty product standpoint, and then some like general travel, is a site called Kim Dao, that's DAO, and I'll link all of those so that you've got those if you're interested. But like I said, there were so many other channels beyond that, but those were like the main ones as far as YouTube goes. Yeah,
and a lot of those were like, here's the one, like my top 100 things to do in Tokyo, like a 45-minute long video.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes to the type of planning that we were talking about earlier, as like, here's just like rapid fire of things that you can do, and then we like kind of note which ones we're interested in and put those together, like start to put those together in the schedule. But as far as like where that list comes from, especially for this trip, like we were pulling from these like resources that we had.
Another one that I listened to for a really long time, like leading up to the trip, it's both a podcast and a YouTube channel, is called Abroad in Japan, like going abroad. And actually the guy's name is Chris Broad. So his channel and his podcast were really, really helpful. And then we found some good help in the blog world. Yes. Do you want to talk about them?
Sure. The Brickers we talked about many times during our videos and spent lots of time talking about, lots of time on our trip, lots of time like in planning, going through their website. They have their overall general blog is the Disney Tourist blog, but then specifically for Japan, their site's called Travel Caffeine. I spent a lot of time on there. I found this particularly helpful in Kyoto. Like they're the ones with all the temples,
they
right?
love Kyoto. They were really helpful from a like giving us a rough itinerary that we sort of like, I say rough, like we basically modeled anytime, like our Kyoto itinerary was roughly modeled off of their information, and then like how we approached Disney was the Bricker method.
So many good texts. Yes. Good
tips.
Good texts. Yeah.
And we pretty much followed them to the letter in Disney, with maybe just like a couple exceptions. Yeah. So they were super valuable. If you are going to Tokyo Disney, check out their blog.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you had mentioned we went to a culture speaking a different language.
We did. So one of the things that we did in preparation for this trip that we haven't done in before.
Not to this extent.
Yeah. We signed up for a Japanese class. And this we found to be incredibly useful. From
with
like
an asterisk.
Yes. From a retrospective stance, we believe that you don't need to know any Japanese
Definitely
to go
not.
to Japan.
No, you don't.
There are enough people that accommodate English speakers,
especially if you're hitting like the main cities.
Yeah,
you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's enough like accommodation for English speakers that you're fine. You don't need to really dig into language ahead of time. But we did find our preparation to be incredibly useful. The class that we signed up for, we felt like we came out of it with or like the amount that we came out of it wasn't necessarily super high, but disclaimer, we did end up going to about 60% of the class, 6 out of 10 of the weeks of class.
It was really busy.
But yeah, like part of it was that like there was a week that was rescheduled for snow, and we were leaving like the day. We would have
made it to that class.
Exactly. But we were actually in.
We couldn't make the makeup class for sure, and then we missed a couple other ones. But what I think is like, we had this intent, like we're going to try and learn some language, and by signing up for the class, it sort of like kept the momentum. Even if we didn't actually feel like we learned a ton from the class, I think our teacher was a native Japanese speaker, and to me, just being in a room with her and like hearing her tell us stuff and teaching us some things was helpful. But yeah, a lot of what we walked away like really knowing and applying, we didn't actually learn in the class itself.
It's true.
But I do think it, as part of like the whole package of like how we approached it and wanting to learn language, it was really helpful. And
yeah, it was like a chance to practice the stuff that we had learned before or outside of class,
and get some feedback in a way that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Exactly, like in a really from like an authoritative perspective. It's like, it's not just this random YouTube channel or blog or whatever, like that.
And there are many YouTube channels that can help you.
Yeah.
In fact, that just as far as like, if you wanted to pick up any Japanese before you left, there's several YouTube videos that are like helpful Japanese phrases to know before you go to Japan. Look at any number of those, and you will be set.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to Shanghai Disneyland last year, and one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that, you know, everything was in Chinese characters and I couldn't read anything. So that was one of the things that I wanted to have be a different experience in Japan. And again, there, I think probably most of the signs, at least like the like vital ones, like in transportation and whatever, have like English.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
in a number of ways, like knowing like the Japanese systems of writing, like the two main ones that we actually learned were hiragana and katakana, was actually helpful. A couple of places came in like really helpful.
Yes. It's just nice to be able to recognize some things. Just like really quick, if you're not familiar, there's the hiragana and katakana, which are the two ways that all of the sounds are written. I'm describing that horribly. Basically, there are characters that represent the sounds. There's 46 syllables. And there's hiragana, which is sort of like the classic version, and then katakana, which is used for a lot of the foreign words.
Yeah, imported foreign words.
Yeah, and then beyond that, there's kanji, which are the symbols that represent words.
Yeah.
Concept. Yeah. I'm not going to comment too much on that because I didn't learn any.
We didn't really learn any kanji ahead of time.
But learning hiragana and katakana was helpful. Like, we definitely used it, and that's something you can definitely pick up on your own outside of class. We had flashcards.
We did, yeah. Actually, 2 sets of flashcards.
We did. This is like the prettier set.
Yeah. 2 sets of flashcards, and that we found incredibly helpful in just.
Yeah, and then there's apps. Katakana Pro and Hiragana Pro are both great apps for just like testing your knowledge. So there's options for you if you want to like pick up a little bit before you go.
Yeah, but again, reiterating that is not necessary.
No, it's not.
Very, very helpful to us, but not necessary.
We just found it helpful and fun. Yeah. Like the times, like I find language learning kind of stressful, but the times that we used it.
I guess a general note about the class is I felt like Katrina, like as much as she finds language learning really stressful, came out of class with a lot of useful phrases that technically I learned too, but certainly didn't stick with. There was like, I don't understand, and excuse me, and these things you're just pulling out in Japan that it's like, where'd you learn these things? Certainly not sitting next to me in a Japanese class. Yeah, exactly.
But they were really useful.
They were, yeah.
So those are our notes on language.
Let's see. Another goal during the planning process, as we looked into our various lodging options, like our various lodging things, because we were staying in a lot of different places in Disneyland and Tokyo and all these different places. We decided to try a variety of types of accommodations, and I feel like there's a variety in types of accommodations that I haven't seen other places that I've gone visited, and so we decided to try as many of those different ones as we can, and we hit quite a few of them.
Yeah, we almost got like all the major categories. We didn't quite get them all, but we definitely did. And that was definitely a goal of ours. And we had a couple different times where we were only staying somewhere for like a single night, so it was a good way to like test something out and then check out and head to our next place. I don't know. Do we want to say quickly what they were?
I guess like might as well. Like we started with like a Disney, like a friend of Disney hotel that was like themed after like a cruise ship.
Yeah, it was like in the resort area and considered like one of the resort hotels, but it wasn't like a Disney hotel.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like
nautical themed. Like the room that we were in felt like a little room on a ship.
On a cruise ship.
Yeah. Then we did an overnight in a Capsule Hotel, which was fascinating. Then just skipping through them in Kyoto.
Lots of details about these on our other videos.
Yeah, in our 20 hours of video.
If you want like the deep dive.
Yeah.
But yeah, Capsule Hotel for one night.
In Kyoto, we were in the short stay place, right?
So just like a hotel, with like a kitchen and washer and just like almost like an apartment style hotel.
Yeah. Then we did an overnight in Nachi where we rented a room from an Airbnb host, which we hadn't done before. We've rented Airbnb.
So many Airbnbs.
Yeah, so many times, but we've always done the like rent the whole place to yourself. But this time we decided to rent a room from like
a woman,
an
a local
Airbnb
woman.
host. Yeah, exactly. Which turned out to be an amazing experience. And then we went back to Tokyo, stayed the night in a Love Hotel, and then switched to
an Airbnb that was just like just an apartment, like an apartment in an apartment building.
Yeah, so hit like quite a variety, which added a lot of like variety to the trip.
Brad, we haven't talked about travel yet, but we are going to talk about transportation in just a little bit.
Yeah. I guess let's see. Addressing a comment that actually Lori flashed up there a while back. She mentioned that Tokyo Disneyland is a good way to soften the culture shock, is what she said. And we found that
highly agree.
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of like going into pretend Japan before you go into real Japan. So you get like really comfortable with the whole like process of buying things and just being around the language and
because actually the majority of people that are at Tokyo Disneyland are local. Like they're, as far as their like attendance goes, it's mostly people that are local that have annual passes. So really
like we saw a lot more international people once we left Tokyo,
for sure,
Disneyland.
So yeah, it's just a good, like you said, like good way to sort of like ease yourself into hearing and seeing the language and getting used to buying stuff, because you got to buy stuff while you're there, but you're not necessarily like traveling. Like you don't have to start learning how to use transportation yet, so it's kind of like little baby step. Ease your way in.
So going on to like other things that we noticed like culturally while we were there, and kind of I guess taking the Disney segue. One thing that we saw that we hadn't seen in other Disney parks, because we've been to quite a few now.
This would be like a Disney cultural observation.
You're right. Everybody wore matching so many people wore matching outfits. Like you have groups of 4 or 5 or 12 people wearing matching outfits,
or like matching accessories, or like very like we're clearly as a group we've coordinated this outfit in some way. Which
turned out to be just a really kind of fascinating as you walk through the parks to see all the different.
And you might think like, oh, I go to Disney in the States and I see groups of people there on their family reunion and they're all wearing a matching shirt. That is not what we're talking about.
No, it is not.
No.
And it really is. It's so common that it's like there's a person and there's a group and there's a group and turn around and this group is passing you this way. It's so common.
You can check like our I know like my Instagram story highlights, Seattle Cat. There's photos.
We started taking creeper photos of everybody. I call them creeper photos. Katrina just calls them photos. Of people like in their various people in their various outfits.
Because whatever you're thinking, it's more than that. So that's just it was a very that was an initial observation we had right out of the gate. What is happening? It's definitely something different that we're not used to. And then also
outside of Disney.
Well, actually, I think something that's also we started noticing in Disney, and then it continued outside of Disney. So it was really interesting going into the shops in Disney and just finding the types of products were not really what we expected. One thing that I just feel like I have to throw out there is that there's very little apparel, which I thought maybe Tokyo Disney has all the cute apparel. That's not really true. But what they did have was a ton of food, because it is very, very common in Japan, if you are doing any kind of traveling, that you bring back some kind of souvenir for your coworkers, and probably family too, but also I know it's really really strong at work. And that is called omiyage, like bringing back some sort of souvenir. And one of the most popular things to bring back is food, and that food ideally is like individually wrapped. So there's all these different like beautiful boxes that have all of these individually wrapped treats, and there were stores where it was just like that was it, like just massive amounts, to a level again that you just don't see in the States. And that also continued outside of Disney. There were stores in all the train stations, and really just that was something you saw. It was like, oh, here's this little tasty treat, and you can buy them in a beautiful gift box of 8. You know, like just a different approach to.
It did make trying some things like really inconvenient, like especially like in Disney. It's like, here's this interesting treat, but I don't want 24 of them.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, I echo that as well. But then also because of this gift culture, in Disney especially, and then I think probably anywhere you went that was like maybe on the more touristy side or like museum, you would often be asked when you were purchasing things if anything that you were purchasing was a gift. And if so, you would be given multiple bags.
They pull out the bags and go to town. Because
part of that gift giving, like you can't just give them the gift, it has to be in their own special Disney bag. And so like you would say like, oh yeah, like something in here is a gift, and all of a sudden you have like 5 extra bags that are being put in your bag. So
it's not really much of an exaggeration. Like
no,
you're really like
or like I bought my mom something in a museum, and I bought something for myself too, and they like put her thing in its own like smaller bag, and then like taped that and like put this nice like sticker and ribbon on it, and then my thing was in its own bag, and then this went into like a carrier bag, which they had double bagged, so now I had 2 carrier bags like with the nice handle to bring back. So definitely different. Like just a different like definitely something you don't see around here. I think it's worth calling out.
Let's see, moving on to a different topic, that in general food is very easy to get in Japan. There are so many ways to like to have like this sort of grab and go food.
You've
like,
probably seen things about like the vending machines that are everywhere, and they like truly are everywhere.
They really are. You're like walking up this alley and there's a vending machine in it.
And like nothing else.
Really like
who's this for?
Vending machines all over the place. Convenience stores like are all over the place. So you could drop in and grab food. There are a lot of like, in some of the neighborhoods have a lot of like kind of street food situations. But what's interesting is, as much grab and go food is there, we saw ahead of time, like watching YouTube's and video, that it's not culturally acceptable to walk around and eat it.
Only in certain situations.
Yeah. It's like there are times where
like you can walk around Disney and eat popcorn. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, like
festival areas, it's fine. But just in general,
you don't walk down the street eating food
or drinking something.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like how easy it is to like buy this food that you can just take off with, but then you can't eat it. Which, interestingly, in some cases, you end up with like convenience stores that have like seating areas,
but not all of them, because other ones will have signs that say "Don't eat anything here." So that resulted in me like buying ice cream at a convenience store and then not having a place to eat it. And so I texted Jared and I was like, I'm walking around with like an ice cream sandwich in my purse because I like don't have anywhere to eat it yet.
I would have just eaten it. Katrina is better at
that one had a sign that said "Don't eat here," even though there actually was another woman there eating her ice cream, but you know, she wasn't following the rules.
I mean, I just would have eaten it on the street and been judged for
it. Almost came to that because we're talking about ice cream and it was gonna melt. So I actually have like a couple other things.
Okay.
One of the things, just a quick call out. I think this is probably applies more. It's more important for the ladies. There are in the restrooms, or I guess in some places, you will find some stalls that have like an old traditional squat toilet versus a more modern Western toilet. So if that is a concern of yours, just know if you're going that might be the case. And a lot of times in those situations, they might be labeled differently, but then you gotta know the kanji for that. So just know.
Did you find that there were like symbols as well? Like a picture of a toilet versus like, I feel like I saw that.
I know at least one of the times there was, but then there was like another time where maybe there was and I just didn't see it. Yeah. So just know that that's something. Also, not necessarily all restrooms have a way to dry your hands. So it's really common for people to carry around like a handkerchief or a towel. And I actually, one of the things I bought over there because of that was this little Hello Kitty washcloth. That's very cute. But that's just something too to know. I mean, that's not like a huge inconvenience, I guess, if you go someplace and you can't dry your hands, but just good to know that that's something common. And then I just wanted to call out something that we saw there that we wouldn't see at home, is in like stores that have like a drugstore or any place that had cosmetics. One of the things that I really appreciated was that all of the lotions had testers.
Yeah.
And I just think that's worth calling out because
that was really interesting.
I actually really like to buy lotion when I travel, so that was really helpful.
Yeah, every type of lotion had a bottle labeled tester, and that just sat there and people would use for testing and not steal.
And this would be like going into like the equivalent of like a CVS or a Bartell's, and just having like every single type of lotion has a tester available for you to try, which I just thought was really great. And then the last thing, and I don't think we've talked about this at all, I saw multiple people playing rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
I think I saw some guys once on one of our hikes.
Yes, I think it was Fushimi and Ari.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I looked it up afterwards, like when we got back, because I thought, I don't often see people playing this in public. And turns out oh my gosh, I looked it up when we first got back, so my apologies if this is wrong, but I believe it has origins, I think in China, and then like started expanding in the East before it came to the West. But that was super interesting to me because...
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's called Jonkenpo.
Yeah, so I
actually did know that about Japanese culture ahead of time.
Okay, but you just didn't see it when you were there?
Yeah.
So two of the times that I thought were the most interesting, yes, when we were hiking, it was like that group of guys, they were like playing it as a way to like move their way down the mountain.
Yeah, they were like playing, yeah.
So like whoever would win would like move ahead.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure, now I couldn't understand what they were saying, but another group that I saw playing in a convenience store, I'm pretty sure the person who lost had to buy everyone else's ice cream.
Ah, interesting. Fun.
So yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
General tips?
Yeah. So tips / things that we really liked about Japan. So the first thing, I guess our first subject is transportation, and here I guess we could address...
This is for you, Brad.
Yep, exactly. The idea of... I definitely saw it ahead of time, like over the past years, like videos of these trains that are just packed full of people, right? Where they like the videos are about the train pushers, where the people just go stand next to the door and then train pushers just push them in. I did not come across that. I was actually really looking forward to that. I was gonna go like get myself shoved onto a train just for the experience, but I didn't.
And I was like, "You have fun with that."
Yeah, Katrina wasn't interested.
And we know that the trains do get crowded. In fact, one of the things is they have for rush hour, they have women-only cars because obviously there was apparently a need. Yeah. So we know that they can get super crowded.
The first couple of cars maybe are just for women only in like during certain periods of the day.
So we didn't experience, I mean, we experienced like busy train times, and then you actually experienced like a silent train during rush hour.
Yeah. Actually on the women train topic, that was actually something that I was really glad I knew ahead of time, because one time I got, like when I came down into the platform, I was in the women's only section and was able to like look around, see the women, see the thing on the ground and be like, right, this is going to be really awkward if I try to get on this car. So I was able to move.
That's the tip.
Yeah,
is know
exactly.
that there are women-only cars.
Yeah.
And then if you are not a woman, don't get on that during rush hour.
One of the things mentioning the silent trains is that heard ahead of time that there isn't a lot of talking that happens on the train. And like I feel like most of our
all trains.
I feel like most experiences that we had were like maybe quieter than U.S. public transportation, but like there were still people that would like chat and stuff.
Sure.
But I did have one experience where I went down into like onto a silent subway platform, and it was amazing in the most eerie way possible. Like neither of the tracks had trains on them at the time, and there were like a slew of like businessmen or like people in suits like on their phones not talking. And then one of the trains did pull up, and we got onto the train, and it sat there for a while, and nobody on the train was talking. And it was an interesting experience. Ralph said that he also didn't find probably the crowded trains.
Probably.
Yeah.
So we experienced crowds.
Might come back to this later, but there were a number of things that I expected to find in Japan and couldn't find them. So crowded trains falls into that category.
Yeah. But also on the subject of transportation, one of the things, because we were going like between major cities, is that we got a JR pass, which is a Japan Rail Pass. You can get it like, is it a week or 2 weeks or? Well, the shortest amount of time, I think, is a week, and that's what we got. And we highly recommend that if you are doing any travel between major cities. And then one of the things that we found super helpful, and it is not required, but if you are using your JR Pass, you can go up to the JR counter and request a reserved seat. And we just highly recommend that. If you're going the JR Pass route, it just makes boarding the train a lot calmer. You know exactly what train car to go to, and you know you've got a seat waiting for you, and then you can just deal with especially if you have luggage, you can just deal with securing your luggage instead of like securing your luggage and finding a seat, because once they open those doors, it's a really quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. These are for the bullet trains, the Shinkansen. Where you make these reservations, and they do have like a number of unreserved cars, like where you don't need a reservation
so you don't have
for it.
To make reservations. But
just with the basic JR Pass, like you can make reservations. You just have to go talk to someone and get that reservation, and they even recommend it. And
so do we.
And we highly also as well. And getting your JR Pass, tip wise, you have to do that before you get to Japan. You have to order the JR Pass ahead of time, and then they'll send you a voucher for the pass, but you apparently can't buy that once you get into the country if you're a foreign.
So look at that ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then I guess
international traveler.
Also in conjunction with that, when we ordered our JR Pass, that's also when we ordered our internet. Yeah, we didn't talk about that before.
No.
When we were thinking of like what tips we wanted to share, but highly recommend. Now you can do that whole like SIM card thing with your phone. I personally have never done that, and I don't understand it.
No.
So, but one thing that's very easy to do in Japan is to rent like a portable Wi-Fi, and we were able, and we were able to just click and add that to our JR Pass order, and super convenient.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
like didn't have like any significant Wi-Fi. Like
no, and again we were in like
issues.
I mean, we did go to like one small town, but for the most part we were in like major cities. So I don't know if you're going like hiking up all the mountains, like maybe it wouldn't work for you. But if you're just hitting like the general like major tourist areas, highly recommend.
Yeah, it was really nice not to have to deal with the phone situation. I often do like an international travel plan, and that gets more expensive, and this was super convenient.
Yeah.
Also highly recommend.
And then for local travel, there's a couple different train passes you can get, and actually I guess transportation passes is the better way to say that. And we got the Suica card. There's another one called the Pasmo card, which we did not look into.
And do you know why?
The Suica card has a penguin on it.
That's
so it's
really the main reason.
Obviously the better one to get. And you can use it on the majority of transportation, not all, because there's
buses and trains and trolleys and
yes, and you can use it to buy things at convenience stores. It's worth calling out that there's a whole bunch of transportation companies in Japan, and so you might encounter a situation where it doesn't pay for something, but it's going to pay for most things. Like we had one train ride that was kind of weird, where it's like we had to pay in cash for like a portion of the train ride within like the greater train ride.
And that was a JR Pass situation.
That was.
Yeah.
But just sort of in general, like these passes work for most things with like a few exceptions.
And it seemed to be pretty clearly labeled when you could use it. Like the little Suica card label would be there, and so it was easy enough to like figure out when you could and when you couldn't use that.
Yeah. But overall, transportation was pretty successful. So it can be overwhelming in the stations. The stations are really big. Give yourself time to find where you need to go. Definitely build in buffer time. We felt best when we were like in line for our train with like a good amount of time to go.
Yeah.
So just give yourself time. The train stations especially are really huge, especially, if like you're in Tokyo and stuff.
Yeah.
So just build in that time, but you'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. I believe in you.
Another thing that we found really helpful and would suggest we saw a number of etiquette videos like on YouTube that go over some aspects of the culture that are helpful to know, like not walking around and eating stuff.
Yes.
Something that I don't think you would necessarily question coming from outside Japan, and wouldn't even necessarily notice that nobody else is doing, but know that you would be standing out as doing something that was.
Yeah, and I think the thing with the etiquette videos too is like, you don't have to watch them, and you will be forgiven as a visitor for not knowing all the rules. But we just felt better knowing them. Like, take a few minutes and they'll cover things like how to act on public transportation.
Like, don't be really loud.
Yeah, like, be quiet.
Yeah, because everybody else probably is.
Some basic tips for, like, dining out and, like, eating in restaurants. Things, yeah.
Whether you should tip or not.
Yeah, stuff like that.
In this case, you don't.
But yeah, even things like transportation ones talked about, like, how people line up for the trains and get on the trains. Just little things like that that I was just really... It's one less thing you have to worry about, is like whether or not you're being an obnoxious person unintentionally. So there's a ton of videos out there on YouTube. Just search for that and watch a couple of them.
Yeah, most of them like overlap, but they're like pearls in each one.
Yes. And then something that we also looked into before we went was a little bit about money, like something that I feel is not super well known, unless you've looked into travel in Japan, is that they are primarily cash based.
Yeah.
Again, to like a level that you just wouldn't expect. So
especially since like Japan is a pretty like high technology company, like really known for technology.
Yeah, and so you wouldn't think that like you would just, I don't know, I think it's a very easy assumption to make that like of course everyone just uses a credit card, but no, the majority of purchases we made were in cash.
I haven't handled that much cash. Like the amount of cash that I handled during the trip equals like how much cash I've handled for the past several years, I think.
Yeah, and so there's ATMs everywhere. Check out 7-Eleven has ATMs that are like tourist friendly. Like they will definitely have an English menu. So that's a great one to use, and they're also everywhere. But yeah, you want to be carrying cash. And you want to use it in most situations. Like, there's definitely places that we paid in cash that probably could have taken a card, but cash is so common that it's almost like more of a hassle to even ask if they would take a card.
The few times that I saw it, I also felt like it took longer. Like the delay was longer than I would expect, like say in a grocery store here.
Yeah.
So it also just kind of like slowed stuff down. Along with that, it was kind of surprising. Like, you could break larger bills at smaller places than I would say here in the U.S.
Yeah,
it's like hand them like the equivalent of like $100 bill
in a convenience store.
Yeah, at like a fairly small place, and it's just that seems
and it's
to
just
be
common
as well. Yeah,
like it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. The payment process itself was nice to
understand, like
know, exactly.
Just be aware of.
Yeah, exactly. And again, Lori says in that it's safe to carry that cash.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so when you go to pay for something, there's typically a tray that you place your money onto, and then they take it off the tray.
And not necessarily everywhere, but it's very, very common. And so it's like in a lot of places they expect you to put your money in the tray, so you're not like handing money directly back and forth.
I'm going to fix this light situation.
Okay.
Go on.
The sun is setting. So yeah, and not, like I said, not every place will have one of those trays, and some people are fine with you handing them the money, but again, it just falls into that category of like nice to know. And then something that I think really stands out to any traveler in Japan, especially if you're coming over from the States, is the amount of convenience stores. And we were really loving that convenience store life while we were over there. They are everywhere, like every few. It's
like every block.
I want to say
like,
it's the equivalent of Starbucks here, but it's even more frequent.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, they're really. It's like So we were really like a big fan of stopping by convenience stores to buy some sort of breakfast option for the next day. And so like most of the time it's like we get off the subway stop for where we were and pass like 2 or 3 on the way to our lodging.
Go in all of them.
Yeah.
Because some of them had different things.
Yeah.
But I think the big call out there is that it's a different, they carry a wider variety and more like meal options than what you see in the States. So
even like super legit meal options.
Yes.
Where you just like buy it and then they ask you whether you want to warm it up.
And then they will heat it in their magical super fast microwave. And
that is not a phrase that we knew ahead of time, but it's like if you bought that kind of a like item, there would be another question that they ask you and you just say yes and then they take it and put it in the microwave. I said no, and they didn't. They just packaged it up and handed it to me. So I have no idea what that phrase is, but just, I mean...
It usually involves a gesture toward the microwave.
Yeah, like so, that could be too.
But they have like a lot of, there's like a, it's not uncommon to see like a case with like heated food items here, I guess, but you might have like the option of maybe a hot dog and a pretzel. But there, it's like, we have like 5 different kinds of fried chicken and these little croquettes and like these other like heated, like there's just a huge variety. And then another thing they have a huge variety of is, for lack of better terminology, I refer to as packaged bread products. And I was trying to explain this concept like as soon as we got to Japan.
To me.
And to Jared. And I was like, you'll see when we like get out there, out of Disney, you will know what I'm talking about. Japan. And it's so true. So there's like an aisle and it has like packaged bread products. And again, this is like to a level that you don't see here. And I will say that my assumption...
This is still unclear.
I know.
Because like one of the things I was talking about is like most bread products like here in grocery stores are packaged. Like, unless you're looking at like a baguette in the bakery, like they're still packaged.
That's
but
a fair
are, like,
statement.
Yeah.
Like sealed plastic bread products. So not like a loaf of bread that's like, swirled and like twist tied. This is like a sealed plastic bread product, but then it's like a, what would be like a ham and cheese croissant or legitimately like a hot dog with ketchup and mustard sitting on a shelf.
Yes.
But then also a huge array of pastry items and a lot of custard centered bread products. So like here is essentially a cream puff.
Yeah.
And it's just like filled with custard. Yeah. And we have like 5 different varieties of that.
One thing I thought that was interesting on that topic or that kind of an item is that a lot of them were kind of like, they were like dinner roll consistency. Or like I ran into that where it was like a cream filled dinner roll basically. Which I ate.
Yeah.
Well, we
ate like,
so many.
Here's this like sandwich roll that has like whipped cream.
Yeah, exactly.
I became very fond of like basically like a cream puff thing that was like half custard, half whipped cream on the inside. And we just don't have that here. Like there were so many things where I was like, why don't we have these things?
Yeah.
So
I do often. We would go into these stores at the end of the night and I'd walk out with like 4 or 5 of these items.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the ones that you eat right when you get back to the hotel, and then you have to have some left over for the morning. So
yeah, and
along with the like ice cream that we grabbed.
I still feel like I'm not doing the best job of explaining like to the degree of which these items are available that it becomes a point worth mentioning. But you'll just have to go to Japan and see what I'm talking about.
Let's see. Okay. One of our tips that we pointed out is like probably the most cliche.
It's very eye roll, but it's
exactly,
true.
Exactly. I guess at least how we're phrasing it, which is get out of the city.
Get out of that city. See the country.
In general, we really enjoyed the cities.
Yes.
But we had we did one overnight in Nachi that was far out of any city.
And just a very small town.
This was to go to the tallest waterfall in Japan. And it did require a long train, like a 5-hour train ride to get there, and then 7 hours,
a couple trains
to get back
out
to Tokyo from there. So it did take
it ate a lot of time.
2 days of our itinerary. And to get to this very, very small town, and then do a hike to a waterfall.
But we loved it.
But we both decided that it was very worth it. that was where we rented a room in an Airbnb. So like had that interaction there and saw the smaller
just really
town.
like loved everything about it. And just definitely a different pace and a different feel than being in the city. And like, I love cities, really, really big fan of cities, but it was definitely nice, especially kind of following that feel of like, we're going to try and stay in different types of accommodations, and we're going to try and see, I mean, there's like the major cities you hit up when you go to Japan for the first time, I think, and that's like Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka. But it's nice to like throw something else into the mix as well. So if you can and you have the time, highly recommend. And it doesn't have to be that small town. There's others.
Probably.
Yeah, no, there are. I can confirm. There are other small towns. I've seen them on Instagram. Let's see. And then I think our other like main tip, which we definitely got a sense of as we were reading through the Brickers advice, is that you have to go places very early. And maybe if you're a morning person, it's not going to feel that early. But for me, it was very, very early. And the Brickers essentially, like, I didn't want to speak for both of us, but yes, it felt really early. The Brickers in one of their blogs mentioned, and I can't remember the exact time, but they were basically saying like the morning's super important, the night's very important, all the time in between it's useless, which that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's kind of true. A lot of these, Japan's has a lot of people. You probably know that, and especially if you're there during a busy time of year, these tourists, like these traditional like tourist sites or really popular areas, get very crowded pretty early in the day. So if you want to be there without a mass amount of people, you have to go early. And we talked about that at length in our other videos as well, but we had some very early mornings, which was very difficult for us.
It was. Because
then the days were super long. So it's like we would have to get up super early, but then we wouldn't be done with our day until really late.
Yeah, like have Fitbit stats on the trip, and like I at least averaged 4 hours of sleep a night for the 2 weeks that we were there, because we were getting up early and staying up late as well. And you don't have to vacation that hard.
You don't.
But
nope, you don't have
we
to.
tend to. So
we do.
Yes.
But on that note,
Lori says off season also works.
Yes.
I was gonna say we weren't very on season, were we? But we went during the cherry blossoms.
We went like right at the start of cherry blossom season. And like it just depends too on what kind of experience you want at that particular location. Because you might not mind crowds at certain places. And we definitely had to make some choices like that, where it was kind of like, okay, well, we should have been at this place super early and it's not now. Like, do we still want to try it? Do we care? Like it just depends on what kind of experience you want, how much you care about other people being in your photos. That's up to you. And that, I feel like that kind of leads into like what we might have done differently, or things we would have wanted to know ahead of time, or what we would have done if we'd had more time. Kind of that realm. Okay, so first, some things that that at least one or both of us like wished we had known ahead of time. We had mentioned that we had learned hiragana and katakana like through our Japanese language study and stuff, but knew next to no kanji, which are used very like all over the place. What's difficult is like you can learn these different systems, but then you'll see a sign and it's a combination of all three.
So kanji and hiragana and katakana.
So you'll be like, oh, I can read that, and now I'm lost because now all of a sudden it's switched to kanji and you don't know what it means.
So I wish that I had spent a little bit more time with like getting set down some of the like basic like traveler friendly kanji. And there's a lot of resources for that, but you only have so much time.
It's true.
And one of the places that we went was to the Studio Ghibli Museum. In retrospect, I had like watched some Miyazaki movies before the trip, and I'd seen a couple before, but had expanded what I had seen. But I wish that I had like watched a bunch more.
I hadn't seen any. It would have been. I fully intended to. And just again that time factor just didn't happen.
Exactly.
So I still enjoyed the museum, but yes, definitely would have been nice to have a little more context.
One thing that I wish I'd known ahead of time is that there are some things that people say exist in Japan and they just don't. So the crowded trains would be one of them. I say they don't exist.
He means we didn't see them.
I did not go to all parts of Japan at all times.
That's
to
true.
know that for sure that they're not there. But
if it was not clear, we are not Japan like complete experts.
We are not.
No.
We've had 14 days of Japan.
This is just us rambling about our 14 days in Japan.
Exactly. Lori says that you saw Totoro.
Did I? I don't really know.
Anyway, the trains, the really crowded trains. And then Ralph, you actually mentioned the Kit Kats. We looked for Kit Kats all over the place.
We did.
And then actually, like, we really did not find the variety that we had heard from everybody about these Kit Kats.
We didn't find them in, like, the way that would have been ideal for us, which is, like, here are all the Kit Kat, like, types in one place. Whereas we felt like we were really, like, looking for them and striking out a lot. But then we would find, like, little pockets of them. And then, I don't know, like, there were times where I would think, like, oh, well, we'll see this one again. And then we never saw it ever again. So, like, the banana one.
Where I did find the Kit Kats was at the... the store that's right next to my gate at the airport, like, on the way out of
15
Japan.
Feet before you're out of Japan.
Exactly. Suddenly there are like 13, 14, 15 flavors of Kit Kats right here. And I spent the rest of my like Japanese cash buying Kit Kats.
As did I.
Didn't exist anywhere else.
And I will say, like, we probably, if you combined all the different types of Kit Kats we saw in all the places, like, it's probably a pretty respectable list.
I guess a lot of them we just also weren't interested in.
That, or they were, like, way more expensive than I wanted. What I didn't find was, like, the wide variety of, like, discounted or, like, lower priced options. Because these, like, fancier ones, like, I found a Kit Kat counter in a basement level of a department store that had all these different food options. There was like a Kit Kat counter that was very fancy, and so they had like fancy options, but I wasn't interested in like $25 Kit Kats. So Ralph found them in some of the gambling stores that you...
Like probably the gachapon.
Or there were some like sort of gambling-esque establishments that we didn't go into.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So basically we didn't go into the gambling.
We just weren't in the right place. I guess.
Like gambling dens.
Next time.
Yeah.
We did have a variety. We both bought a variety at the airport coming home, though. So
yeah.
We did find some, but I had imagined a trip full of Kit Kat eating, and that was not... That was not what happened.
Another thing that didn't exist in Japan during cherry blossom season were cherry blossoms.
To be fair...
Katrina's going to take a more reasonable stance on this as well, like she did on the Kit Kats, but I'm just going to say they don't exist.
They exist.
They did. We did see some. But we did spend quite a bit of time like trying to track down some cherry blossoms that I had gotten the impression were all over the place.
Yeah, to be fair, we were like a hair early. Like just if it would have been like a week later.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a much different experience because especially in Kyoto, we went to a lot of places where they just weren't blooming yet. But we were like at the places and we were like, in a week or two, these are going to be so spectacular.
Yeah, in Kyoto, that was definitely the case.
We went to a lot more like sites that had garden kind of layouts in Kyoto.
Yeah.
Whereas Tokyo, we were kind of like running around town. And so we did like hit up a park and we like...
That's supposed to have like 700 cherry blossom trees in it.
Which, this park was really big.
It was very big.
Probably weren't in the right part of the park.
Again,
I don't know.
She's going to be more reasonable about this, but I'm just going to say that those 700 cherry trees didn't exist.
Basically, the photos that people were posting at home of the cherry blossoms in Seattle were more impressive than what we saw when we were in Tokyo.
Like the cherry blossoms at the quad at UW?
Just right down the street.
Those were very impressive.
Yes. So I think we were just a little too early. We didn't have a chance to really go to some of the more like iconic cherry blossom viewing spots once we were back in Tokyo. We just didn't have the time. So that would be something, I mean, is it too like cliche to be like, I just wish we'd had more time, but it's true. Like there were so many things we could have done had we had more time, and I think seeking out more cherry blossom like better viewing options would have been possible with more time. But we kind of, the sites that we chose were based on the time we had available and the locations of the city we were in, so they might not have been the best choices.
Again, reasonable. So that kind of switches over to like what we would have done if we'd had more time.
All the things. I mean, I mentioned a little bit about how we plan and we like come up with a list of things we want to do. There were many things on the list that we didn't get to. I think especially in Kyoto, we'd kind of like walked out this walking path based on some advice from the Brickers. But true to like what we tend to do, we spent more time at places we thought were more interesting, and then just dealt with the fact that it was like, well, that took up our day. So now we just need to adjust our evening and like what's still open and available. And so there were places we didn't get to. Obviously, it would have been great to see all the places. There was in Tokyo, there was that open air museum.
Oh yeah, that we didn't get to.
That sounded super cool. Lots of cool like architecture, just like in a huge open space that you kind of walk around. Like that would have been amazing to see. We just didn't have time.
We ended up cutting it in favor of a couple of other things.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, and then just like
whole places.
Other, entire cities that we didn't get to.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot on the like, next time I want to see this kind of thing for Japan. But definitely places that we went to that we wish we would have had more, like the places we saw where we would have enjoyed more time.
Yeah, specifically for me, at least, the Digital Arts Museum in Tokyo. I would have
loved more time there.
We were originally going at the beginning of the day, and then that's the time that we ended up cutting the museum out. We had to like shuffle some stuff around, and decided to go at the end of the day.
Which was still great.
We were able to like miss the crowds because we were late enough, but we did find like a number of exhibits there that we would have been able to spend like a lot of more time at.
Yes, like we could have easily spent more time there.
Yeah.
Like
what we had was good. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
And we still loved it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those places like if we'd had more time, we would have loved to have spent more time there.
I mean, I think we probably I feel like we both found it more interesting than the Louvre. Like,
I mean,
I did.
I would like more time at the Louvre as well.
We certainly spent more time there than we did at the Louvre.
We did. No, I mean, there's they both have their merits.
They do. Yeah, and then otherwise.
I really feel like, so I would say that in general we are not like the most adventurous eaters. Like when it comes to like the types of food we're looking for, like we don't typically put a lot of time and effort into like fine dining when we travel. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, did you not hear that we like ate at a convenience store all the time? However, if we'd had more time in Japan, I think there would have been more food options that I would have liked to explore. And again, this isn't even saying like fancy things. It's just that we found very quickly a handful of reliable food options that we really liked. And then we stuck with them, and we have done that on other trips as well. Like we definitely have. I think we like to places we go to regularly. It's like we like to throw something new in the mix, but then we have like our favorites that we tend to hit up regularly, and it works out great for us because we know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
We don't have to put a lot of time into like finding new options or like being disappointed that like it's reliable.
It's often a function, I think, of convenience and quality. It's like if we find something that we really like that is also very convenient, we tend to pack our trips pretty full. And so it's like find something that we really like that we can eat, like we can grab from a counter, or we can eat at 2 a.m. or which
that's a great
keeps us going back to like the same ways. We just don't tend to prioritize food as high on the list of other things that we do during a trip.
So that's just something like, had there been more time, I think I definitely would have tried other options, would have branched out a little bit, but I'm like super happy with the food that we ate. And I actually do think that that's a really good call out, just a cultural thing, is that there is a lot of food available late at night. And like good options. We're not just talking about like you can go to this place but it's kind of sketchy. Like no, nice restaurants are open, some of them 24 hours, often until like 3 or 4.
Was the gyoza place open till like 4?
Yeah, the gyoza place that we ate. First of all, that there's a gyoza restaurant
at
all.
There's a gyoza place, and it was amazing.
It was so good.
Just, like,
we actually ate at like 2 different gyoza restaurants, and the one we ate at our last night there was open till 4:30 in the morning, and we were there probably around 1, and we were not the only people there having dinner.
No.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just from being like a late night person, it's nice to have those options that you know are like good and safe. Like, so I really enjoyed that.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our video, which means in about 45 minutes we'll be done. But we wanted to like hit like some of our favorite things that we really enjoyed from the trip. So first,
these are all things that had you watched the like 20 hours of video, we've probably already talked about. So maybe there'll be some repeats in for you, but this is sort of like the super highlights.
Exactly.
Of everything.
Okay, restaurant.
Favorite restaurant. We probably have a tie.
Okay.
Ippudo.
Yeah. It was a ramen place that we tried our first day in Japan. and we were starving, and it
like we don't even know how long it had been since we'd actually eaten a meal. Yeah. Like, you know, there's a date line that you cross.
Yeah, exactly.
Time change.
No idea how long it had been, and we were starving, and we found this place, and it was amazing. And it turns out that it wasn't just because we were starving.
No.
We ate that. It's a chain that is actually, well, it's actually all over the world.
So we're very excited for our next trips to LA and New York.
Yeah, because they have them there too. So we ate in Tokyo and in Kyoto, and when we came back to Tokyo, and
yeah, it was one of our
last
meals there. It was
we really liked it.
Very good. I hope the one in the U.S. I hope it's just as good. Mm-hmm. Really, really, really hopeful. I do think it's worth pointing out that one of our favorite restaurants in the world is also in Japan, which is which is Paul Bakery. Uh-huh. It's a French chain.
Paul was kind of our Apudo of Paris.
Yes, for sure. Except we ate at Paul way more.
Like every day.
We ate at Paul, I think, literally every day.
Well, that was like a sandwich counter situation where we could just stop in the subway.
It was in the subway, so we were just like
in the metro,
like on our way out for the day, like grab our sandwich.
Yeah, like grab 2 sandwiches. Yeah, like one we'd eat right away, and the other one we'd carry around with us all day and like snack on.
Oh, so great. So we were really excited to find that Paul has locations in Japan. Japan is actually the first country it expanded to after opening in Paris.
In the 90s or like early 90s?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's been there for a while. Yeah. So we were super excited and got to have a few Paul sandwiches while we were in Japan. So
yeah, that was a fun surprise.
So I don't want to be like, my favorite thing in Japan was a French sandwich, but I'm not saying that. The Apudo was definitely like the winning restaurant, and I'm super excited that we can eat it here. Yeah. Favorite treat?
Favorite treat. So I decided to go with ice cream.
Just as a general.
No, I did choose a specific, but
okay.
like as a general note, we had a lot of ice cream on this trip because often like when we stopped at a convenience store, we would leave with ice cream. On all the like hikes that we took to like temples and stuff, you like hike up into this place, and then there's like a little shop selling soft serve ice cream. So there was a lot of ice cream, but I think my favorite was this mint ice cream that we ate. Was that nachi?
It was.
Yeah.
The cup?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
that was
this cup, and it was like in the novelties section. Yeah. But it was so good. It was so good, and we looked for it the rest of our trip, like in Tokyo and stuff. But that was the only place we found.
Couldn't find it. I think it's safe to say I'm pretty sure we ate ice cream every day.
Yeah. At least once.
At least once every day.
Because many days had it more than once.
They did. Because again, you're just stocking up at that convenience store, and we stayed multiple places where we had a freezer. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, you know. Yes, my favorite treat was also ice cream. I'm a big fan of ice cream, so like that should not be a surprise to anyone. My favorite was this one. It's called a manaka, and it looks like a big waffle, like a rectangular waffle, and then on the inside it's coated with chocolate, and then it has vanilla ice cream, and then it has like a ribbon of chocolate like going through the middle, like a really thin, like hard, not like chocolate sauce,
like a Hershey's bar.
Yeah, but like super thin.
Yeah.
That was my absolute favorite. I looked it up after I left, like after I got home, and learned that it is actually the like most popular ice cream treat in Japan. Like it sells the most out of everything, and there is no plans to go international with it because they would worry about the quality of it going overseas.
Yeah,
which is kind of a bummer.
I also had lots of those.
It was really good.
Yeah, but that was really more Katrina's find, so that needed to be her favorite.
And I feel like
not that we haven't talked about our favorites ahead of time.
No, we didn't. Yeah. But I will throw in like a second, like a runner-up that I found at the last minute.
Yeah, but you still have these. I mean, you didn't like buy the whole box. But...
So we were in our last couple of days. We really were like hitting the convenience stores hard. Like one night we were searching for something. I think maybe like that mochi candy or like.
Oh, sure.
Maybe, I don't know.
The chewy stuff.
We like came home from dinner and we like hit like 7 convenience stores on the way back to our apartment. Literally and 7. I saw something on a shelf that I thought was like an off-brand haichu, and I enjoy my haichus, and so I was like, oh, what's this? And it turns out I had not stumbled upon haichus. I had actually stumbled upon like the equivalent of a throat lozenge, and there were a couple different flavors, but then the one that caught my eye because I'm such a big fan of peach was a peach throat lozenge, and this is like officially like my favorite. I tried it as we were walking around, like we were still on our way back to the apartment, put it in my mouth, and immediately said, "This is the most amazing peach candy I've ever had." And so then we immediately had to find, again, in our like convenience store hopping, I had to find another 7-Eleven, because this one, as far as I could tell, was only at 7-Eleven, and buy some more to bring home. And yes, actually, I kind of hid them from myself, and I almost couldn't find this to bring it here to film. I was like, where did I put it? And I kind of buried it in the cupboard. So if any of my friends are going to Japan and you want to bring me back a treat, please bring me back some of these. I will give you a picture, and they're in convenience stores, and they're like $1. And if you just want to grab a handful of those and bring them back for me, I would be very grateful, because they're really, really yummy.
Okay, so favorite lodging?
My favorite lodging was our Kyoto hotel.
Oh, of course it was. Oh my gosh. I cannot tell you how many times she said how much she loved this place in Kyoto.
And when we were talking about categories for favorites, you were kind of like, I don't know what for lodging. And I was like, I know what I'm saying for lodging.
Yeah.
So we stayed at a place called, was it Gion?
Ghana short stay?
Gion. Gion. Hana stay. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, Gion Hana.
Yeah, like I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's like an extended stay hotel, so there's a little kitchenette. But this place was just lovely. Super, like it just was clean. It had a lot of space. It had this like really big bathroom and a lovely
wallpaper.
Like sparkly wallpaper. It had a window in the closet.
Yep.
It just, it was just delightful, and it was close. Like we loved the location. It was super easy to get to places we wanted to go. And it's one of those places that's kind of unassuming from the outside. Like it didn't look like anything fancy on the outside.
Oh no.
No, it just looked normal. And so I think one of the things was it was so much nicer than what we thought it was going to be. Not that we thought it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
But it was just, it
was really high quality.
Yeah.
For what we normally see when we're traveling around.
Yes. So I loved that. That was definitely my favorite. What about you?
Oh, I decided to go with the Capsule Hotel.
You might.
Yeah. That was one of the ones that really stood out to me in researching like stuff about Japan. Like this just kind of like sort of space age, like sleep in this like hole in the wall.
Sleep in a tube.
Sleep in this like tube in the wall where you just like pull down this screen to separate you from everybody else and you don't get murdered. Like it sounded like just an experience that I really wanted to have.
Definitely fun experience.
Yeah, and really fascinating. Like it's kind of like almost like a hostel situation, but so much more accommodating. I think I stayed at like one hostel, but like but super accommodating is you like show up and they give you like what do you call that? Not an accessories bag.
The amenities bag.
Yeah, the amenities bag, like with toothbrush and toothpaste and slippers, and they give you pajamas. So really, you could just show up without anything.
Yeah.
Like have everything you need for the night, sleep, get up the next day and go. And so I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
There were some like downsides to it, but overall, like I really liked it. I'd stay there.
Like again, there's many YouTube videos about it. So if you're interested in checking it out, I'm really glad we did it. It was a really neat experience. And yeah, definitely like unique to that area, and like there's many options. Like we stayed at a place called 9 Hours, but there's many different types.
Yeah.
So yeah, how's lodging? Purchases.
Yes.
Spoiler,
purchases.
I'm not limiting myself to one favorite purchase.
Right. So I guess it turns out I didn't realize that we could. It hadn't occurred to me that we could do show and tell with our purchases.
Oh.
So I think I'm actually going to grab mine.
Oh, then should I start?
Yes. So
okay.
you start, and then I'm going to go get my favorite one.
Okay. So I will start. I had, let's see. I had a hard time narrowing this down, obviously, and I've already showed you my Hello Kitty towel and those peach throat lozenges, but one of the things I had really wanted to do when we were in Japan was to get a Hanko stamp, which is basically, and I talk about this a lot in our other videos, but it's basically a stamp for your signature. And so if you live there, you definitely have one because you have to put it on all your official documents. We stumbled across in Kyoto a little shop. It was just like, it was so perfect. We stumbled across it and
we're just walking past. She's like, Hanko's shop.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
okay. And I was like, we have to go in. Where like there was a nice man there who was willing to work with me and like come up with what would be best. He offered me a couple different varieties. I just went for my name in katakana, but just to give you an idea, you've probably seen something like it. Like it's just like those little like block stamps, and I'm not gonna.
I mean, I never had.
Okay. Well, it comes with typically you see like red ink. But anyway, I also, in addition, so I was super excited about this. I placed the order, and he needed like 24 hours to make it. And so like just timing and everything worked out perfectly.
It was right in an area that we were going to be in, easy to get to, like with just enough time to get back to there before we needed to leave.
We still had the next day where I could come back and get it. So all of that worked out so perfectly, and I'm so happy with it. And then traditionally, like they have like a little carrying case with a little ink pad, which I did get, like it came with it. But then in one of the stores called Alice on Wednesday, which is a store in Harajuku, I actually bought a little Hanko case, and it has some Alice art. I don't know, there might be too much glare, but anyway, just trust me, it's really adorable, and it's got this beautiful like stained glass Alice themed art, and I'm just so excited that it is
very pretty,
fits my stamp, and like that just all worked out so lovely, and I'm so happy about it.
Especially since Hanko stamps come in many shapes and sizes. Like they could be really thick or longer. Or
whatever. I had to choose what size I wanted.
And this ended up fitting her stamp.
I went with smaller because it's kind of spendy to get it.
That's really expensive.
To get it custom made with love. I really appreciated that. So I knew I was kind of getting into that. It was just something I really, really had hoped to get, but I thought I might have to find it in Tokyo, and I wasn't really sure like where to go to get it in Tokyo, and I probably never would have found a place in Tokyo. I don't know. So I'm just really happy that it all worked out the way it did. And then just a couple other things. This is kind of an odd choice, but at Disney, they had these little wooden figures, and I've looked online, and I really think this is like exclusive to Japan. They're just like these little wooden figures of all these characters, and I really love like traditional wooden sort of block toys. And so one of the things that was unique about Disney in Japan was that they featured a lot of characters that aren't necessarily strongly represented in the U.S. I
saw the same thing like in Shanghai Disneyland.
Yeah. So I think
Paris.
In Paris,
like the Aristocats.
Yes, and also like in Paris, there's a lot more Alice representation. Same thing in Japan, way more Alice. And then just really quickly, like Little Green Men, like Pooh, like Winnie the Pooh and the Pooh characters. I feel like there's definitely others. Like there's just, it's definitely just very obvious that just trust us. So you see like more representation of these characters that maybe aren't as popular in the US. Now in these wooden blocks, they had a whole range of characters, but I am actually really fond of the Little Green Men from Toy Story. So I have this little wooden block, little cute alien guy, and I just think he's so cute, and he has a perfect little home on one of my shelves, and I'm just very pleased with him. So that was one of my favorite Disney purchases. And then I mentioned earlier that I like to buy lotion when I travel, and so what I actually brought to show you, I bought.
How many purchases did you bring?
I bought just this and one more. So
and one more?
Yes. Well, no, wait, not to show, but just to talk about.
That's like 8.
No, I don't know. I've lost count. But just to give you some history, I also brought, just to show you, this is the lotion I bought when we were in Paris.
Oh.
And I love buying lotion when I travel because then you can start associating.
When we were in Paris 5 years ago?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because then and this is just like a peach lotion from Monoprix. What I love about it is that you start associating the smell with the place. And because smell is such a strong memory trigger. And so, like I don't actively use this anymore, but I can still smell it and think of Paris. And so kind of in the same vein, I actually bought quite a bit of lotion. But the one that I started using when we were in Japan is this one. And things are just focusing so much better here than they did when we were traveling. And this one, I really like peach. So this one is actually peach tea. And I just really, really like it. So really pleased with this purchase, and also happy because I found it online for not much more than what I paid for it in Japan. So I'm very excited. If I run out of this and want more, I can get it. And then the only other thing that I want to mention from purchases that I didn't bring with me purposely is eyeshadow, because for the last I don't know, half a year, maybe almost a year, I don't even know, I've been using an eyeshadow that is a Japanese drugstore brand. I came across it on a YouTube video and just really liked how it looked, and I've been buying it in Canada. at like a Japanese cosmetic store up there, and paying a lot more than a drugstore price. And so I was very happy to be in Japan, be able to buy it from the source, and so I bought a handful of those.
All of them.
Not all of them.
She just went to everywhere and said, "Give me all your eyeshadow."
Well, in one case, when I was finally like, okay, I need to start buying eyeshadow, the first place I went to go buy it, they only had one. So yes, I did wipe them out.
What did I say?
So those were my top purchases.
Okay, my purchase. My purchase is
Singular?
a Disney purchase. Yeah, exactly. I actually didn't buy a lot of things on the trip to bring home. But when I thought favorite purchase, I just thought of another one. I'm like, oh, that was a fun one too. But when it came to favorite purchase, it is this. This is a Winnie the Pooh pillow that is the softest, most smushy pillow I've ever felt in my entire life. And he had to be like smushed into a suitcase and traveled like didn't come straight home from Japan, so it like went multiple places with me, and now he's very soft. And on this side, he winks. Anyway, I love it a lot. That's my favorite purchase. Okay, so then we go on to like favorite Disney thing.
Yeah, so just kind of these are like our like top experience sort of things, but yeah, Disney's sort of its own category.
Yeah, so like favorite experience, and then like we split it into Disney and out of Disney
because Disney really is its own thing.
So I have 2 things for Disney.
Okay. I might have more than that.
No.
Okay, I'll try and narrow it down.
Okay.
Okay.
Just talk about them fast.
Okay.
All right, so one of them, there was the Sinbad ride, Voyage of Sinbad, which really caught me off guard. It was a ride that was very much like It's a Small World in Disneyland. You just go
like
through,
a boat goes through some rooms.
But there's this Sinbad character, and he's just singing the song that we later found was composed by Alan Menken. And he's just like singing along as he goes through his adventures, and I don't know why, I really love that.
It was a catchy song.
Yeah,
like it definitely
yeah, it was great. And then the other one was so we were following the Brickers itinerary for this, and they mentioned in passing, they're like, this isn't seeing everything, which is, acceptable. Sometimes you have to prioritize, but they're like, for example, you haven't like set foot in like Triton's domain at all. And we had walked by it, this like Little Mermaid themed building that didn't look like there was really much inside.
No, like the building looked beautiful.
Yeah,
but it didn't look like there was much going on.
Yeah. But
turns out,
like, we ended up like, it was nighttime. It was later on in the evening. It was like, well, we have some time. What should we do? And it's like, well, there was this place. Like, what if we go check that? And
and there was like a restaurant in there that we were checking out.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like, what if we go and eat there?
Yeah.
So we like walked all the way across the park and went inside, and then there was like this ramp down into this giant
underground,
under the sea themed area
that just sort of like reveals itself in all its glory.
Magical. Like, I just couldn't even, I literally just stood there with my mouth hanging open as I like look at like everything that's happening, and there ended up being these like walk through areas, and it was so
it definitely amazing. From like a ride perspective, like there were a couple rides down there that were definitely like more of like the little kiddie rides.
It was it was really like a kids area.
But as far as like if you enjoy sort of like the immersive aspect of Disney, then you shouldn't miss it. Like, you definitely want to walk down there and see it. I mean, the building itself is just very impressive. See it during the day. I thought it's all lit up at night, but I think it looks really cool during the day because it's like all these mosaics that are just gorgeous. And then it's that reveal as you're coming down, and then there's a walkthrough area that I think appeals to all ages. Yeah. That's So there's definitely like stuff to do. There's a restaurant. There's some great ice cream down there.
It was magical.
There's a show, so is for everyone.
Yeah.
So definitely if you're a fan of The Little Mermaid, check it out. I really enjoyed it, and she's not one of my favorite characters, but I still really loved that area. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, it was very
Okay.
All right, those are my 2.
Okay. Some of the things 8. I've already kind of mentioned some of these, so I think I can skip over some of them. I think one of my absolute favorite things was just how like beautiful Disney Sea was. Like Tokyo Disney Sea, just the land, the layout. I really tried to take moments where I was like, like specifically there was that one moment we were standing up on like the fortress. And I was like, I just need another minute here because I really just loved it. Was so beautiful. And
that's also something we had no idea was there. That was kind of one of the things we just stumbled onto.
Yeah, and like we expect like these parks to be lovely. Like I think like when we went to Paris, we were like, this park is beautiful. And I'd heard that about Disney Sea, and that it just like looks amazing. It's really big, like the scale. It's like a really huge park. There's a lot of water. Disney Sea, spoiler, there's a lot of water. All the lands are like around a different like region of water.
Yeah.
And there was just so much to look at, and it was just so beautifully done. So I just really enjoyed the landscape, which sounds like a really lame thing to call out, but I just really enjoyed, especially seeing it at day and then seeing it again at night, like when it's all lit. It was just really, I just thought the park was beautiful. I could see like just enjoying spending a lot of time there, observing and like walking around and seeing all the details. So I think that's a major call out. I really like experiences in the parks that are unique to that park, or like something that you're not going to see anywhere else. So that's one of the reasons too, like Tokyo Disney Sea really stood out to me, because I know it's the only Disney Sea in the world at the moment. And then that's also why the Honey Hunt ride made my list. So Honey Hunt is a Pooh themed ride in Disneyland, and it is a trackless ride, which that just on its own is really cool, because there aren't that many trackless rides. So
like you get in a car and it just kind of like
that means it's not on a track. Yeah, so like a lot of rides you get in like the vehicle, and it's following, there's like if you turned on the lights, you would see there's like a track on the floor that it's like following, or it's being held above, you know. But this, like, you're just in this vehicle, and it looks like it's driving itself around, which
it's driving itself
around. It is driving like, because that's what's happening. Which I guess when you just say it, like, it doesn't sound that impressive, but the ride, it's really...
But it's different.
Yes, it's a different experience, and then, so like, for that ride in particular, we rode it a couple times, and we were in, like, a different order of the cars. Like, we got into a different... Because they, like, released them, like, 4 at a time, so we were in a different one, and like, our experience on the ride was different.
Yeah, we took a different path than we did before.
Yeah,
like, you enter this, like, one big room there were, like, many cars just, like, in and out, and seeing the different pieces of the room and stuff. So if you get at a different point in the order, you see different things in the room. Yeah,
so I just think that definitely stood out, just because it's something like super unique. And I guess like the Sinbad ride would also fall into that category, just something that's like not anywhere else, which is really fun. And then I think what I'll do is wrap it up with just like a general comment about food. We actually felt like Disneyland had the best treats and Disney Sea had the best food.
Sure.
From like a meal standpoint.
Like, I believe you. I remember discussing that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to call out a couple of things that we ate that were like unique. One was that Disneyland had like a waffle restaurant, which we ate at twice. One of the times, it was one of our longest lines we waited in. It was like over an hour, or just about an hour.
Just about an hour, yeah.
And but it's just like a waffle restaurant. Why don't we have that at Disneyland here? How simple would that be?
Right.
Throw in a little waffle stop.
Make some waffles.
It was amazing. So yeah, that was great. I loved that. One of the most popular, if you look online, foods that you see referenced for Tokyo Disney or in relation to Tokyo Disney are the little green men, like little mochi dumplings. Those were great.
Those were fun.
Like, I highly recommend trying those. And then this is kind of a weird call out, but our breakfast one of the days in Disney Sea, there was like a gyoza bun
the one in the Jules Verne area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think it's worth calling out. Like, we were kind of like...
Sausage.
Yeah, like a sausage bun, but it was like a long...
Yeah.
Yeah, almost like a steam bun.
Yeah.
But gyoza
like
flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's what I'm going for.
Gyoza bun.
Yeah, so that was just something like unique. That was good. And then just sort of a shout out to all the different popcorn flavors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, decided, like, I guess the Tokyo parks are known for having a bunch of different popcorn flavors, and I decided that I wanted to try them all, and ended up, like, before the end deciding I didn't actually need to try them all, because there really were like there were a lot. Yeah,
and a lot of them had really long lines, so you had to weigh like, how much do I really want that flavor.
Yeah, exactly. There were some that you could just skip.
Garlic shrimp,
and then I don't know. The call out about the popcorn to me was that it wasn't heavily flavored. It's like the strawberry popcorn was like
lightly flavored.
Yeah, I would expect here in the US to get like punched in the face with a lot more artificial flavoring. So it was nice to like eat like a whole thing of popcorn when it's like a little lighter on the tongue.
Yeah. Okay,
favorite experience.
Just in general.
Yes.
I think we have some overlap.
Okay.
Because we've already talked about the Digital Arts Museum.
Okay.
Which was amazing. And then we also just talked about like going to Nachi, which I feel like those are like when people just kind of quickly ask me like what are my favorite things, I pick those. It's like here's this very high tech thing, and then like here's out in the country. Yeah. Nachi, like the whole experience of going to Nachi, I just really loved.
Nachi was mine. So I'll just I'll just jump in with you.
Okay.
Like we'll explain it together.
The whole experience of like staying with a local host, she was just so great. She showed us the town. That hike was really beautiful. We got like good quality waterfall time. Like
the hike was really one of the things that stood out to me, because you can go. There are like a number of places. Like you take a bus out there, and there are kind of a couple places you can get off the bus. But we got off the bus like where like was recommended at the beginning. There's a bit of a hike to the temple, and it ended up just being this like through this really really beautiful section of forest. There was bamboo like growing on both sides, like either side of the path. Yeah, through like a section of it that was the most impressive bamboo situation that we had seen. And then later on, like when you're hiking down to the waterfall, like you're hiking down these like really big stone steps,
like
through
cobblestone, stone.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just.
Yeah. It was just
beautiful.
It's like a scene that's like really imprinted in my mind of like the way that this looked, and definitely like topped my list of favorite things in Japan.
Yes. And then, I have one more. Did you?
No. Okay. I stuck with the one.
I think like those were definitely my favorite. Like when people ask me like what were your favorites, those are the two things I say. But I also think an honorable mention is the onsen.
Oh yeah.
Like
that was an experience.
Yeah, like I don't know that I would say it was like my most favorite thing in the world, but I think like it's definitely like super unique and definitely worth checking out if you're going to Japan.
This is a public bath.
Yes, which is very very popular there, like just culturally, and like it's a very social activity there for people. Like people go in groups and their families. We went one night in Kyoto, and we talk about it at length in one of our videos. Look for the one where we're wearing robes. And I'm really glad we did it.
Yeah, it was great. It was a very interesting cultural experience.
And also kind of like
that I'm really glad I did by myself.
Yes, with a whole bunch of locals.
Yes.
Yeah, there were other people there.
I mean, like I went in without anybody that I already knew.
Yes, it's they are separated.
Yeah, two areas by gender.
Yes. So yeah, I think it's worth an honorable mention call out. And I think that will wrap up my top experiences. Although I just will say, if you want to talk about shopping in Japan, just message me privately, and
she did a lot of it.
We can chat about that. If I'd had more time, I would have shopped in more places. I will say, like, the stores, especially like some of the electronic stores, were definitely a unique experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy to talk about that at length with anyone who wants more information about shopping.
Overall, it was a really great trip.
Yes.
Ralph asked like where our next location is. We technically don't have specific plans.
Although our next trip together is probably domestic.
Domestic, yes.
Yeah.
I heard two domestic.
Where's that?
Okay. Yeah. Domestic.
Yeah. Nothing like international on the books yet, but we're always chatting about it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
There's still a couple of Disney parks that
there are.
Katrina hasn't seen, and one that I haven't. So.
Yeah, so I need to catch up, and then we need to check off the last one. Domestically, I mean, we're always looking to go to New York.
Yeah.
So
we didn't go to New York this year.
It's hurting my heart a little bit.
Yeah, it's not on the itinerary for 2019. But
a little painful.
Anyway, but we did go to Japan. But
we went to Japan instead, and that was amazing.
We did really love it.
Like, I really loved it. I really, when we first got back, I was like, do I miss it so much? Because like I was just on vacation for 2 weeks, and that's so amazing. And I, of course, would rather be on vacation than not on vacation. So I was kind of like, see how you think, what your thoughts are a couple weeks out. And now we're like a month out, and I still miss it. I really enjoyed it. I felt very, like I would be comfortable going back there by myself. There were definitely times where I was really glad it was the two of us. In one of our other videos, I mentioned our host in Nachi was wonderful. You could absolutely stay with her on your own if you're traveling by yourself, but I probably wouldn't just try a new experience. Like I wouldn't just rent a room from an Airbnb host. Yeah. By myself for the first time. Like I just wouldn't be comfortable with it personally. There were some times we were walking around like late at night that it's like there's other people out and about, and I would think like, would I feel as comfortable if I was by myself? I don't know, probably. But just in general, I feel like I would feel very comfortable going back to Japan by myself as well. So it just, it felt very safe, very welcoming.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same. Like after I had been gone, it was like, you know, I kind of like, it would be cool if I was in Japan right now. And typically I like leave places behind when I leave them behind, but it was yeah, it was like, this was a really great experience. Yeah, I would highly recommend, and I definitely want to go back. There's a list. I already have the list going of things I want to see and do when I go back. So this is the end of our last Japan video. So we should sign off. Yes. Thank you so much for watching, and for those of you that tuned in while we were traveling, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. We really enjoyed. This is the first trip that we've ever done video recaps, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Signing off for Japan. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.